What is up, DFS Degenation? I apologize. We are a little late tonight than when we normally go live, but Ryan had some stuff that he had to take care of, and so we waited a little bit around, but he will be joining us momentarily. But in the meantime, it's me, Kevin Steele. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyRat13, and you can find Matty D, as always, at Matty DFS. How's it going tonight, Matty?
It's good, man. I think we've got a really interesting slate this week. It's a lot of low totals and some high spreads. So I'm curious to see what you and eventually Ryan, whenever he stops taking care of his adulthood and doing some actual work that non-football related. How dare he, right? Like, come on, hang with the boys.
I know, right? It's work and wait. Okay, it'll be there whenever you get around to it.
That's
okay?
Right.
We only get so many weeks of the NFL season, so this comes first. But anyways, I totally agree that this week is going to be pretty interesting compared to last week, where I felt like it was pretty obvious to go with like somebody like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs stack. Where this week I think there's a little bit different. You can go a lot of different ways. So I'm really excited to get into this week's slate. But before we do, make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, you hit that like, subscribe button. We are getting closer to that 800 that we're looking for. Plus, if you are listening to this, you may want to be tuning in because we are going to, I'm not ready to announce it yet, but we got a pretty cool giveaway that we're going to be doing, including probably some memorabilia, some NFL memorabilia that we're just going to be giving away to one of our subscribers. So you want to be sure you're subscribed so you can get that information. But in the meantime, let's just go ahead and jump right into this week. Like you mentioned, I think we have some games we can just start at quarterback that I think is going to be interesting, right? Because this week you have three quarterbacks that are in the 7K range with Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Deshaun Watson. And then past that, the 6K range is actually pretty large with Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Taysom Hill, Ryan Tannehill, and Ryan Fitzpatrick all in this group. For me, when I first opened this slate, which is usually what I do on Sunday nights because I can't wait to look. Because I want to see. Know. Yes.
We love getting one-liners and screenshots of player pricing from you on Sunday night when we're all building our showdown teams and Kev's coming in, dropping in his favorite next week plays, and we haven't even made it through the full day yet.
I know. But that's what I got to do. I got to know. So I can't wait. I always tell myself to wait till later in the week, but I don't ever do it. So, but the first things that kind of stood out to me were, one, I think Aaron Rodgers to me is entirely too cheap at 6,800. I don't understand the pricing on him. I know he played Sunday night, but regardless of that, like it's just way too cheap for Aaron Rodgers in a matchup against Philly, where that's how you want to beat Philly is through the air. Like they are great against the run. They do an excellent job of shutting that down, but in the air, they are completely vulnerable. And so for me, like Aaron Rodgers feels way too cheap for where he's at. And then if you look at guys like Deshaun Watson, who now have question marks without Will Fuller, you have Kyler Murray, who's been nursing this shoulder injury, even though he's getting in full practices. And then you have guys like Russell Wilson, who, are really starting to, and you brought this up, in one of our chats that we have about how they're starting to run the ball a lot more and they're not really letting Russ cook as much. And the numbers are starting to bear that out over the last 4 weeks, that they are not throwing the ball nearly as much as they were. I think now they're only throwing it's like 58% of the time in neutral game scripts. So, with Russ, like it's a little bit harder to trust him now. Yep. And especially if Daniel Jones is out in this game, then they're damn sure not going to need to throw the ball that much because it's going to be Colt McCoy on the other side of the field. So I don't know how much you can trust going to Russ there. And then you start going down. You got like Kirk Cousins, who's at a great spot against Jacksonville. But again, this is a team that if you can run the football, they are going, or if they can run the football, that's just what they're going to do. There is games where Kirk Cousins may only get 14, 15 attempts in a game. However, whenever he gets pushed and made to throw the ball is whenever he really can go off and he can put up QB1 numbers, much like he did last week. But for me, when I first opened this, there was two players that really stood out to me that I have some interest in, and they're both gross.
I can't wait. I expect nothing less from you.
The first one is Carson Wentz at 5,400.
Oh my God.
I know people
I got to get some water after that one.
I know people aren't going to want to play Carson Wentz at 5,400. He has been just eviscerated on Twitter and everywhere else that Carson Wentz is done. He is a bum. However, the thing that I do know is that he's still putting up fantasy points. Last week, he was, I think, like QB8, QB7 in terms of overall fantasy points last week, and that's in a 4-quarterback league. So the dude's still putting up fantasy points, and they're playing Green Bay. They're going to have to throw the ball, so he is certainly going to be put in a spot where he is going to have to chuck the ball 40 times, which is what we're looking for. He also has rushing upside, and he's 5,400. Is it sexy? No, but we've seen in other spots when they played Pittsburgh this year, they played Baltimore this year. He played really well in those games. Am I saying that I think he's going to come out and light it up? No, but I think at 5,400, and I think with no ownership coming in on him, I do think he makes a little bit of sense. And then the other one is Mitch Trubisky at 5,400.
Now, that one I'm okay with.
Trubisky at 5,400 is just ridiculous to me because against Detroit, Mitchell Trubisky in his career has torched the Lions. Like, he has done really well. We've already seen this matchup once this year, week 1, where he put up 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. And so there is lots of like here. And plus the stack that you can make with him with Allen Robinson, and then potentially, if you want to go like Darnell Mooney or Anthony Miller or Jimmy Graham, like that's there, or David Montgomery as well, you could stack him with, which makes a lot of sense at this game. Not to mention the fact that Detroit is missing most of their starting secondary as well, and they're not that good to begin with to be able to stop it. So I really do like Mitchell Trubisky a lot at 5,400. Plus, he also has some sneaky upside to be able to pick up some yards on the ground. So for me, when I was kind of scrolling through those 2 names really stood out to me as 2 guys that I'm going to have some interest in playing this week. Where are you coming in on this week?
Yeah, I just want to touch on the Mitch Trubisky thing real quick. And it feels so gross. But on a slate like this, where there aren't really any guys with monster ceilings at the top this week, like talking about Russ here, we'll start from the top. So the thing with Russ, like you mentioned, is kind of the trend that I dug into before their game last week against Philly. Is they had been in the low 60% range in terms of throwing the ball in situation neutral game scripts, 1-score games, but over the last 4 weeks that had actually dropped into the 50s. So they had started to make a conscious effort to run the football. And that was with Chris Carson out too. And now he's finally back, came back last week, and he actually looked good in his limited touches. I think he had 10 touches for 59 yards from scrimmage, whereas Carlos Hyde had 17 touches for 29 yards from scrimmage. So there's definitely a talent drop off from Carson to Hyde there. I mean, Hyde is a serviceable backup, but it is Chris Carson's backfield. And we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to running back, but I think Chris Carson is one of the best leverage plays on the slate if Russ is in fact going to be popular. There's a little nugget of info I found against the Giants run defense. So we'll definitely want to touch on that. But I mean, outside of Russ, Kyler Murray's been dealing with a shoulder injury. He finally practiced in full today, which he hadn't done in a while, I don't think. But I mean, still, the Rams have allowed only one top 12 wide receiver finish in terms of fantasy points this year, and they allowed it last week to Deebo Samuel, who isn't really a traditional wide receiver. He's more of a gadget guy. Get him some quick screens and get him in space, and he kind of makes plays yards after catch. So I am kind of weary on that passing attack for Arizona, especially paying up for a DeAndre Hopkins, who you ideally would pair with Kyler Murray if you think Murray hits his ceiling. Now, granted, Murray can get there with his legs, but paying $7,600, you're still going to need him to have good production through the air. And it's just, it's just such a tough matchup. The Rams have been so good against everybody. Their defense is legit. They get after the quarterback, which, I mean, I guess getting under pressure could help Kyler Murray run a little bit more. But at the same time, I just don't know what kind of ceiling we're going to see from him here. This is the first time these two teams will play this year. So there is still a bit of an unknown because these aren't the same two defenses we saw last year. Both defenses are playing better than they played last year. So I think he's interesting at 7,600, and I would definitely play him over Russ and Deshaun Watson. And speaking of Watson, I mean, we know that the Will Fuller injury, not even an injury, but the PED news, the suspension, that's huge. Because even when DeAndre Hopkins was in Houston, Deshaun Watson's numbers dropped off significantly without Will Fuller. And now you're just giving me Brandon Cooks as a wide receiver 1 instead of Hopkins. I think that, a lot of people are going to gravitate to that Houston Indy game as a game stack. And I just think that game, could underwhelm. I mean, Phillip Rivers is dealing with a pretty bad foot injury, supposedly in practice this week. And Deshaun Watson now doesn't have Will Fuller. So if Indy can rely on the run, they are going to rely on the run. And I think that they can do that here because I don't think Houston is going to be able to put up a good enough fight on the other side. And I think you see a heavy dosage of Jonathan Taylor. So all of that to say about those three guys at the top is there are pretty severe concerns for each of those three guys to hit their ceiling. And with that being the case, we can look at guys like Mitch Trubisky down in the bottom of the barrel price range, who Trubisky, you talked about his success against the Lions. In his career, he's played him 6 times. He's averaging 267 yards per game. He's thrown 14 TDs in 6 games against the Lions and has a 67% completion percentage. Yes, I know each season's different and every team runs out a different defense every year. But, I mean, like you said, just to reiterate, we saw it in week 1, threw for 242 yards and 3 touchdowns on only 36 pass attempts. He's going to hammer A-Rob. He's loved throwing to Miller over Mooney. He's got David Montgomery, who he's been utilizing in the pass game. I like the Bears. I think they're going to be popular. Montgomery's probably going to be more popular than Robinson, so I'll probably play Robinson and then just sprinkle in some Montgomery. But I don't know how much Montgomery I'm going to have. It just scares me to go all in on a Bears offense that just hasn't been very good, despite them playing Detroit this week. But all that to say, I do like Mitch, and I think the setup for this week allows you to play Mitch. And then the other guy I like down there, not as cheap as Mitch, but I really like Ryan Tannehill. I know Cleveland, it's going to be the Derrick Henry show if Cleveland allows it. But at the same time, Tannehill has been very efficient with his pass attempts. He's got 2 of the most dominant A.J. Brown is dominant, and Corey Davis has almost been just as good as A.J. Brown this year. Both of those guys are seeing a very they're the very concentrated, airtight air yard share and market share there for targets. So it's a very easy stack to run with Tannehill. And even if there's some question about whether Jonnu's going to play, it looked like he was missing practice yesterday. He didn't practice today. So it's very interesting if he misses. You've got a Ferkser at min price tight end there. So those are going to be the 3 guys that Tannehill throws to. He's not really going to mix in anybody else, doesn't throw to the running backs really. So it is a very easy stack to make. And the run back on the other side is easy. It's Nick Chubb. So that's a very easy game stack for me in a game that I think I'm going to have a lot of exposure to. But as for paying up, yeah, I think Herbert's interesting because New England has and can allow explosive passes. But I think if I'm paying up, it's going to be for Aaron Rodgers, like you said. I mean, Green Bay is in the top 10 in pass rates in 1-score games. Even last week, we saw, they get down to the 3-yard line on prime time every time. And then Rodgers is throwing a touchdown and it's not going to Aaron Jones. So, and now they're playing a pass funnel defense in Philly, who we know we've wanted to attack with, pass offenses the whole year and not really running the ball because their front 7 is very good. So, I think Rodgers makes a ton of sense. The thing is, if you play Rodgers, there's going to be a lot of people who have Adams as a one-off. So you have to stack up, like fully stack up the Packers if you're going to play Rodgers. Otherwise, the Devontae Adams one-off teams will be outscoring you if Rodgers doesn't go nuclear to other guys. So I think it's a very interesting week, but it's also a week that I'm going to be very concentrated with my exposures.
Yeah, I think it definitely is going to be. And our guy, the host, I think we've done a good job of holding it down, in the meantime. But I guess we should go ahead and bring him in. Ryan Williams finally decided to grace us with his presence. So, we're going to have to get this set up real quick.
Fast late. Look at him in the office.
What's up? Yeah, ain't no lies detected over here, man.
Ryan said, they're not going to believe me. Let me do a quick walk to my office real quick.
Yeah. No, we good. It ain't no quick walk. I had to come on. I mean, what is Kev talking about playing Carson Wentz? You know, I had to have the YouTube channel going, even though I'm not on yet.
Yeah, I can't play Carson. I can't play Carson. Mitch, I'm good with Mitch, but Carson, Ryan, let him have it. Let him hear it, man.
Yeah, even Mitch, dude. I mean, so this week, and you guys have been killing it in the chat. I've been grinding this workout, Maddie. You know, I'm grinding for the Sunday, right? I'm trying to get in so I can get invested, give the people the video, give them the article, and I've been looking at this slate off and on for the past couple of days, and it, like you said, Maddie, like it just. Sometimes I feel like we come on these shows and we talk about, man, this slate's kind of ugly, and then the week kind of presents itself, and you're like, okay, like here are some spots that I feel like you can get to. But when I'm looking at the Vegas totals and I'm looking at everything, like there's so many situations and games that we have. It's now, an 11-game slate, not a 12-game slate, as DraftKings is saying, with the Washington-Pittsburgh game getting postponed. But there's so many spots where we're projected blowouts, and like, yeah. It's not blowouts that we're going to see, 20 points, but so many spreads that are a touchdown and above. And so it's like, and I'm looking at the quarterbacks in these positions, and, looking at this Rams-Arizona game, like, yeah, that's going to be paced up. And I want, pieces from that game. But like, I mean, damn, can we trust Cooper Kupp? If Robert Woods is 5,900 yet again, like I want to play him. Don't trust Patrick Peterson. You talked about Kyler Murray banged up, but that game should still present goodness. And Jared Goff is sitting there at 5,800, and it just makes you so sick to even think about putting him in the lineup. It's been so many weeks that I've had to consider a guy like Jared Goff. And I agree with Kev, like Aaron Rodgers is just, I mean, how is this guy not jumping off the page and going to be, how are people going to want to avoid him at this price tag? It just does not make sense there. I don't care who's on the other side. Like this Packers team looks to score 30. I mean, they remind me of like the Steelers team when they had all those guys. And we it's funny that we're here with Aaron Rodgers and we're like, who's he going to throw the ball to? Like Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, and that's it. And it's like, yeah, the fuck he is. Like he's having an MVP season with these guys, and to be priced at this is just crazy. Like you're looking at his price at whatever it was in the 6K or 6,800.
68, yeah.
Bill is 63. Like it's just so gross. And I'm looking at these other spots. Like I agree with you too. Like on Russell, like and maybe it'll make me have to force some Russell builds in, just because the Seattle team is so weird, Maddie. Like they are running the ball. It's the tale is as old as time. Chris Carson comes back off of the injury report, and this dude just takes all the work away. And so, Metcalf is priced up. Lockett is forgotten about. Like, I don't think anybody wants to play this dude. And, we know how good he is. Like, he could pop off any week. So I think trying to get a little exposure there to Russell, I feel good about. But I agree with you, Maddie. Like, I think the Tannehill call is kind of the way that I'm looking to go. I mean, me, I like to go with the narrow distribution of targets and guys too. And you've been beating the drum on Corey Davis for the past 2 weeks. He's 5,100, like totally in play this week. AJ Brown, like I don't even care what his price is anymore. Like in any type of matchup that could be deemed favorable, like this dude is a beast. And so you're looking at Henry, who's priced at 9K. And I know I'm rambling here. I just want to come in and get on the fun. But you're looking at Henry, who's 9K, and people just feel like they missed out on him, right? Like he's 9K, Dalvin's 9K. Then you get to Chubb. Okay, so we need to know what Kareem Hunt's doing or whatever. And running back is just kind of a toss-up as well again. And so I say all this just to say, like, the week is just even if we get news on some of these guys like Hunt, Jacobs, what's going on with Julio, who's now missing practice all of a sudden in weeks, and we can't even consider Matt Ryan if this dude's not playing. All these question marks, like I don't even know if it makes a difference on the slate, and that just makes me think that builds are going to be the same. And so this week, even more so, I think I'll try and go off the reservation on builds, because we're already at week 13 now. Like, what do you have to lose at this point? It's like we're 13 weeks in the game. People are going to be doing what we think they're going to be doing. And you talk about ownerships, and the ownerships have been hitting. And so if you can be just a little bit different, I mean, look at that Derrick Henry play last week. Like that crazy of a play. Everybody wanted to play Dalvin. Okay, so just play Derrick Henry. And Kev talks about it all the time, but about how Henry doesn't catch passes. And ironically, he was catching passes last week. But it's just I want to play dudes in leverage spots that nobody wants to touch because they're either afraid of the price or they're afraid of the game or they're, afraid of missing out on points. And it's the same thing for me, like with a guy, and I'm skipping ahead, but just like Darren Waller this week, like he just burned people last week. And pay up for a tight end really didn't work out with him and Kelsey. And so people are going to look to go back to Rudolph, go back to some of these other guys. And I just want to this might be the most contrarian week for me. I just wanted to say at the top. So welcome in, boys.
So that's why you should want to play Carson Wentz. Like that's why you should play Carson Wentz.
No. There's so many other ways you can go, Kev. I mean, we've seen this from Carson like all season long. It makes you, especially on a slate where you don't need to play. And like, so you're playing Wentz, and I think, I'm not sure what Zach Ertz's status is, but I mean, Goddard looked good in that game. So you pair him with him. I think that's kind of cool, but you're playing him with Rager, maybe. I mean, what are you really doing there? Are you going to run him naked? Are you going to try and guess who it's going to be? Like Fulgham just got shut down. Is he going to pop off? Do we have to worry about Alshon Jeffrey? Like, how is this dude getting snaps?
I think I would go, it would be Goddard and Miles Sanders.
Okay.
You can play Miles.
You going back to the Miles well? Hoping he some?
But who else do you really like? Who else do you feel like supremely like? That's my problem this week, like especially with quarterback. Like I don't feel like even Aaron Rodgers, I think, could go different directions and things can get a little bit weird. But Aaron Rodgers certainly stands out as the best play on the slate in terms of just among all quarterbacks. I think you feel the most confident in anyway. But past him. Like, I don't think there's anybody on the slate that you could pinpoint and say, you know what, no, this guy is going to be an absolute smash play. There's going to be red flags among all of them. And there's different ways. Like I've said, like I said at the beginning, like Kirk Cousins, for example. Kirk Cousins could score 30 points this week. He could score 10 points this week. Like, it's a great matchup against Cincinnati. Somebody like Ryan Fitzpatrick, also great play against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's not good against the pass, and I know they're going to get Myles Gaskin back, but Ryan Fitzpatrick is a little bit more expensive this week than he was last week, but he's still only $6K. We know that Ryan Fitzpatrick has that I don't give a fuck attitude. He's in play.
Right.
Jared Goff, same thing, 5,800 against Arizona. He's played well against Arizona in his career, so he's somebody else that you can make some sense. Matt Ryan at 5,600 feels incredibly too cheap for him. But, it is on the road at home against the Saints, who's the last time we saw these two teams a couple of weeks ago, the Saints fucking the Saints just fucking crushed them. And we'll have to see what's going to happen with somebody like, is Julio Jones going to be back? If he's back, then maybe that changes the dynamic a little bit with a Matt Ryan. But still, like, there's just no, like, standout Patrick Mahomes, play this guy 100% of your lineups, and you feel great about it, and let's move on to the next one.
Ryan Tano.
And that can still go different. Right? That's one it could go completely off the rails. If Derrick Henry goes ham again, then again.
But I will say though, I mean, look at that game last week, Kev. Like, so Henry, whatever Henry put up, what was 40-something DK points that he's getting, and Tannehill still was doing stuff.
I like Tannehill this week. This isn't an anti-Ryan Tannehill take. I think this is. He's not like a just absolutely smash play. Like there's.
But I think this is the slate for him to like go over, like heavily overweight on him because he's.
And I don't mind that at all. Like I do like Ryan Tannehill.
He's essentially a lock for upper teens and points. Like he's scored less than 17 points like one time this year, and even if you go back to last year, it's in the same trend. But he has, if the touchdowns don't go to Henry and they run like play action and you get Ferguson, or maybe they're, third and goal from the 4 and he hits AJ Brown with a fade route in the back corner of the end zone, all of a sudden those 2 to 3 running back touchdowns are now Tannehill touchdowns, or even Tannehill can rush one in himself. And so we've seen on multiple occasions, even dating back to last year, Tannehill has that low 30s upside, which in the low 6K range on this slate, and we know where the ball's going too. So if he throws 4 touchdowns, AJ Brown is catching 1 to 2, Corey Davis will catch 1 to 2, and then one of the tight ends. Hopefully Jonnu sits and we can just play Ferguson at min price. But those are the 3 pass catchers. Like he's not going to throw into Khalif Raymond or like somebody random like that. Like it's not going to happen. So I know where the production's going, Ryan, and I know you preach that all the time as to how you want to stack your QB. is based on, an offense where you can predict it. And for me, Tannehill, I know it's going to Corey Davis and A.J. Brown and the tight end, whereas Philly, I mean, Alshon Jeffrey is getting more snaps than Travis Fulgham. No, thank you. I'm out.
Dude,
I am
so
out.
gross.
I don't know what the fuck they're doing with that.
It's
It makes
gross.
no fucking sense. They both ran the same amount of routes. Like, it's just fucking
It doesn't make any sense. After Fulgham smashed for like 5 straight weeks. I don't get it. I don't know what they're doing.
And I think, in we talk about this every week, shout out to the Degenation fam that's been rocking with us. But I think you guys know by now, like, Kev has his certain player style. Like, I have my certain player style. Maddie has his certain player style. And so when we talk about these things, and we're all, I mean, dude, it's been lit since Thanksgiving. I felt like I've talked to you guys more than I've talked to the fiance. just in regards to like plays and football and stuff like that. It's been fun. And so, like, I know, when you're talking about playing Ryan Tannehill, Maddie, like, you're not looking at the slate in the same way that Kev does and I do to a certain extent when we're playing, 20 max teams or, in the 150, dabbling in with those couple teams. Like, you're making stands. And I think that even more so for me this week, like, I might just have to make a stand and not go so far unless I can figure out what we're doing at running back. And there's so many questions there. We'll talk about it when we get to it. But how fucking just terrible has running back been this year? I mean, people know it from redraft, but just it even more so frustrating from a DFS standpoint of like trying to figure out like who these guys are when you can only play, you have to play a minimum of 2, can play up to 3. And so many guys have been in good spots and have disappointed. Like the backfields have, we're seeing vultures at an all-time crazy high. Maddie, you had the Miles Sanders the one week and Corey Clement scoring and Boston Scott scoring. It's just been so effing frustrating to try and get these guys right. So with quarterback for me, I think, I like Tannehill. I mean, depending on where Dalvin Cook comes in, and maybe he's not as popular because he's dealing, with this injury, so to speak. And we, already priced up Madison, so that's there. But I like Cousins getting Thielen back. I mean, he's so successful about targeting and Thielen in the red zone. I mean, Justin Jefferson's coming along, Noah Irv Smith. Like we know that Cousins will, like to get the ball to Kyle Rudolph to kind of move the chains there. And if we can get these touchdowns that go to the passing game, it's just one of those things. It doesn't make me feel comfortable to talk about Kirk Cousins, but I'm looking at his price tag, looking what I can do with him. And, then I don't have to think about playing Dalvin, who's in the 9K range and takes up a lot of my salary, and I can do things elsewhere. So, and the other guy, and I can't forget about this because you put it on my radar, Maddie, is Derek Carr. I mean, this dude was in the smash spot of the week. I can't remember how many touts we're talking about the Derek Carr to Darren Waller stack last week against Atlanta. And it's just going to leave a sour taste in their mouths. And I know people aren't going to write up Derek Carr. I know they're not going to write up Darren Waller. And here he is again, on the road here. And, not doesn't really fit my build of the narrow distribution of targets. But if we have Josh Jacobs, who's banged up, and there's going to be more asked upon Derek Carr to kind of move the ball here, then I do like him if his ownership is going to, be limited to non-existent.
I'm glad you brought that up real quick because I think a mistake, not a mistake, but a misconception people make is when the starting running back goes out that you can just expect the backup running back is going to absolutely smash. And that's not always the case, right? So like Booker, he would be a good play in DFS, yes. But at the same time, he's not going to be as efficient as Josh Jacobs is. And I think they have to end up relying on Carr more than they want to. And the Jets are a pass funnel defense anyways. So like if Booker's in and he's, picking up 1 to 2 yards on first down carries, right? Now you're behind the sticks and 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6. And Derek Carr's got to throw the ball way more than anticipated. And playing the Jets, yes, please sign me up for that. So I think if Jacobs is out, I like Carr way more than if he's in, because if he's in, I think they just, try to give him as much as he can handle, or it gets gross to where they split the backfield because we have seen them give Booker a ton of touches, even in games where Jacobs is playing, if things get out of hand or if Booker gets hot or whatnot. So, yeah, for me, I think Carr makes a ton of sense, but I think for me, it would only be a play if Jacobs were to sit.
I feel you. I feel you. Should we? I mean, we talked a lot about quarterbacks there. Should we go over to the running back spot? Kevin,
Yeah.
Quarterback. Let's talk about running backs because, like I said, I mean, it just really kind of comes down to the position. You had to get this position right in order to some weeks cash or some weeks be in the running to feel good about your lineup. So we got Dalvin Cook at the top, who's questionable. He's 9,500. Good to us, and this injury that looked way worse when it happened last Sunday. I thought we were definitely going to be looking at it again, another Alexander Madison week, but he was able to come back in the fourth quarter and finish stuff out. And so he's been a limited participant this week. It's something that we have to monitor. If he's, if they say he's kind of good to go going into Friday's practice and we get it into Saturday and people kind of forgot about him, I will have some interest in getting him on the teams if people are going to write him off. But if it seems like he's going to be popular, I'm just going to, try to fade the noise there and go a different route. But, it does become interesting because he's 9K, Derrick Henry's 9K. Then you got Nick Chubb priced down, who's, on the road here against Tennessee, who, could be had on the ground. And you're looking at, since returning from the injury that Chubb had suffered there earlier on in the year. I mean, 126, 114, 144 touchdown in 2 or 3 of those games. And what was even crazy to me last week was the dude was out there catching passes. I mean, they decided to actually run routes for the dude. So if he's going to be catching passes, if Kareem Hunt is questionable and ends up missing, I mean, Chubb is where you should be looking to start. I mean, talk about somebody who wants to feed the ball to him. I mean, Stefanski there, they're giving this guy looks, and we know that's happening with Hunt. And you got to think without Hunt, they're not going to put a guy like Dearness Johnson back there and give him Hunt's touches. Those are all just going to go to Chubb. And at that price there in that game, that could Maddie, like you're saying, if Tannehill gets hot, or even if it's Henry, like if Titans are able to put up points still, they're going to have Chubb out there. And so the hope is that maybe you can get Cleveland, to get up in that game early, neutral game script, and then Chubb can just, do his work. I really like Nick Chubb this week. Josh Jacobs questionable. James Robinson, I mean, I don't know what you guys are doing with him. And my kind of thing about him is that he always just somehow he finds his way onto these slates where he always just becomes popular because people are looking at his work share and, they can plug him in and they're like, okay, I can get 15 to 20 points out of this guy. And it's a game that I don't really, maybe Minnesota can take it over, or maybe, we get lame duck Kirk Cousins. And what are we getting from Mike Glennon? He looked good last week, and so maybe he folds there. I don't want to play James Robinson. He somehow always ends up popular. And I'm looking at Aaron Jones right there at 2,100 or at 7,200, and Austin Eckler at 7,100. I like both of those guys more. I mean, Austin Eckler last week seeing 16 targets, you have to love that for DraftKings purposes. I mean, this dude came back off of injury and is seeing the work right yet again. And, we saw that kind of trajectory before Eckler got hurt, and then he got hurt. And I think people forgot about that. But I think it does affect Keenan Allen. It certainly affects, Mike Williams and guys like Jalen Guyton and Hunter Henry to a certain extent, because Herbert just has an affinity for passing to the running backs. And luckily for Austin Eckler owners who have him, he's rushable every week in DFS. So I like those guys. And then, at the bottom, I mean, we got to talk about Montgomery and Kev, you can, go on your riff here about him too. I'm not sure if you want to play him or not, but he's going to be popular this week. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, he just played on Sunday night against the Packers, 5,500. People see the Trubisky offense. They're looking at that situation there. I mean, the Lions, what's not to like about that matchup there from the ground? And it's just going to be tough to play a popular David Montgomery. I mean, for those of you guys out there who can stomach that, more power to you. I'll take a shot for you if he pops off, but you won't catch me dead playing Montgomery at 20+% ownership on an 11-game slate with Trubisky at the quarterback helm. With Trubisky or Foles, doesn't matter. I mean, you just can't trust this offense to consistently get past the 50-yard line and be able to score once they get into the red zone. That's kind of where it is. And even, ironically, like now that Trubisky's back and he's the mobile quarterback, this could affect dump offs to Montgomery. We were seeing his, Nick Foles, who's not having time, not mobile, be able to get him some passes that kind of helped out for DraftKings purposes for him to catch. And I don't know if we'll see that with Montgomery. We definitely didn't see it all that much last year when when Trubisky was there for that full time. So I just don't want to have to play him there. I mean, you could probably talk me into a guy like Kenyon Drake. Kev, I'll let you talk about Jonathan Taylor. Naheem Hines at 5,300 in that game. Geo Bernard, you could probably talk me into Damian Harris. I mean, there's other guys that are around there that will see a fifth of what his ownership will be. And I just want to go into other spots. Kev, why don't you take it up from here? Because I do want to hear what you have to say about Jonathan Taylor this week at running back.
Well, first I'll start with David Montgomery. Like, if he's going to be like 35% owned, then maybe I'll look a different direction. But if I can get him at a little bit lower ownership than that, he does make a lot of sense. I mean, Detroit is just absolutely ass against the run. They allow the most DK points. They are fourth in rushing yards allowed, first in rushing touchdowns, third in passing yard, or fourth in passing yards allowed, and first in passing touchdowns allowed to receiving backs. Like, they have been truly awful against the run. And not to mention, they just lost Danny Shelton for the year, who was probably one of their only really decent run defenders that they even had. And so now he's done for the year. So everything really makes a lot of sense for David Montgomery and at his price to at least try to get him into your lineup. And they have been utilizing him as a pass catcher. We saw it again last week. And so, he's only 5,500. It is going to be really hard to get away from that price tag for a running back in that good of a spot. Like, it is truly a smash spot for him. And so it is really hard not to want to play him. And I do probably fully expect for him probably to be really expensive or excuse me, really highly owned this week. And so that will play into some of my decision I make because, can David Montgomery fail? Sure, of course he can. They can also go out and throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he doesn't find the end zone, and he's not utilized as much in the passing game, and that would affect him some. So I'm going to have exposure to him regardless, but it may not be as much as I would want to because I do think there's a chance he's going to be chalk. I can tell you this. There is not a chance in fucking hell that I'm going to play $9,200 Derrick Henry. I can tell you that right now. No fucking thank you. It made sense last week at 7,900, knowing that he wasn't going to be owned. No one was going to want to play him. But no fucking way I'm playing $9,200 Derrick Henry. You had better have 10 target upside if I'm gonna play you at 9K.
Winter's coming, Kev. Winter is coming. It is here.
I don't give a shit. I ain't paying $9,200 for Derrick Henry. Ain't happening. Right. It is just too expensive for a running back. If you are coming in, you have to be Christian McCaffrey. You have to be able to tell me that I know in any situation you're going to be able to excel. If you fall behind, you're still going to be utilized as a pass catcher. If you get ahead, you're still going to be getting the rock. Like, I cannot say that about Derrick Henry. I know they've talked about Mike Vrabel today, said that they want to get him more involved as a pass catcher. I will hold my breath and wait to see that happen because he has been there long enough and they've yet to do it. I can't imagine now in year 3 of Mike Vrabel, I believe, that now all of a sudden they think they're going to want to get that Derrick Henry involved as a pass catcher. Last week he ran 10 routes. He had 4 targets and 2 receptions. That ain't cutting it at that price tag for me. I will risk it, and if he kills me, so fucking be it. But I'm just not – there's no way. As soon as I saw it, I was like, get all the way the fuck out of here with that. Anyways.
Well, no, I mean, and he's definitely a capable pass catcher, so it's just funny that he felt the need that he even had to say that. I mean, we're looking at, every time Derrick Henry is getting these, 1, 2, 3 targets or whatever, like the dude is making stuff happen with them. So it's like, why is that not part of your game plan? Like, he's arguably your best player. Get him the ball in his hands. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to make you feel good about your roster builds putting a guy like Henry in there, especially with Cook priced right above it. And if he's healthy, I think he, offers the same amount of upside that Henry does, if not more, because of what he means to the Minnesota offense. I mean, the Tennessee offense, they do, he is getting touches inside the 5 and things of that nature. But you're looking at what Dalvin Cook's able to do when they get down there, and it's, they try and get him the ball as much as they can. Matty, speak to us, man. Running back, how you feeling?
I think it's an interesting week for running back as a whole because, I mean, on the surface, it looks like there's a lot of, big name guys that we want to play in good spots. I'm on the side with Kev. No chance in hell I'm playing a 9,200 Derrick Henry. Even if he scores 35 points, I'm not even sure he burns me with that. I mean, he's going to need to be like, you think about when you paid, 9,800 for Christian McCaffrey, he was scoring 40 points every game. And that's not what Henry's going to do. And I think, I still think people are going to play him because, the whole narrative around Derrick Henry smashes when it gets cold outside.
Yep.
And I think people are just going to look at his game log and see, oh, well, he's got, multiple games this year where he's gone for over 40 points. I can afford to pay 9,200 for him. Especially with, I've got David Montgomery I compare him with, and then it saves me some salary. So I think he will garner some ownership, and it just makes Tannehill an even better leverage play if Henry does in fact end up popular. No thanks. I'm not even playing Dalvin Cook against Jacksonville at that, even if he was fully healthy. It's just so much, and you've got guys like Austin Eckler. I mean, how about Ian Rappaport coming out saying this? He will not have a bell cow role, and the guy goes on and gets 14 carries and 16 targets, 30 opportunities, 3-0 in his first game back from a multi-week injury.
Ian Rappaport is the worst.
He is Ajayi's agent.
If we do nothing else for people, for the Degenation fam, please just set up your Ian Rappaport alerts. Just set them up. Set up the Twitter notifications and do absolutely the opposite of whatever he's reporting. That's all you have to do. I mean, that's an easy way to win money right there. Just set up the alerts and look at his reports, do the opposite. There you go. I mean, dude, and the fact that Eckler even got 16 targets last week, and dude, Anthony Lynn, I mean, my goodness, like this dude is absolutely.
Derek's in chat. He's loving your rant right now.
Get him out of fucking town, dude. This is ridiculous of what they're doing. I mean, they're ruining plays here for us. But I love Eckler this week, Matty. I just how can you get away from him, especially if he's again like I haven't dived in as much as I would normally have at this point, but I still at this point haven't seen as much traction on him as I think that we should, knowing what his role in the offense was immediately after he returned from injury.
I honestly don't even care what the matchup is. He's going to get 12 to 14 carries more if they're ahead, and then he's going to see 10 plus targets. He saw 11 the game before he got hurt, and then he just saw 16 this past week. Right. So it's like I'm going to get a guy who's going to get 25 plus touches no matter what, and he's committed. Like he's one dude that. I feel like he's good on his word, right? And he's committed to his fantasy owners, man. He's publicly stated it multiple times. You want me for your fantasy playoffs. Like, I'm going to eat. And he's going beast mode. And he comes out and gets 30 touches in the 30 opportunities in his first game back from a multi-week injury. And so,
wild.
Yeah, it's 7,100. I don't even care what the matchup is. Sign me up for that. And interesting thing with James Robinson, he had been seeing less than 5 targets a game with that Lutton dude at quarterback. And then he gets my first game Mike Glennon plays last week. He gets 6 targets. So, they're already feeding him a ton of carries. He's seeing over 20 carries a game in his last 5, minus the Pitt game, which they were losing 27-3. But I mean, dude's constantly getting over 20 carries a game. Now I think we can project him for 5 to 6 targets with Glennon at quarterback. And Minnesota's not that good of a defense either. So I think he's very interesting, and I'm not sure what kind of ownership is going to come in on him, just because I feel like,
every week he's up there.
He is. And it's like, it's because he's one of the safer options.
Yeah, he's a bell cow. You know he's
Yeah.
he's gonna get all the work.
It's
You're not worried about somebody like Corey fucking Clement coming in on the 1 yard line and
Yeah.
fucking taking a touchdown away from you.
Right.
I just
I
think
get-
Or when you run Nick Chubb and then all of a sudden here
Yeah.
comes Kareem Hunt's fucking fat ass coming out here on the 1 yard line and taking a fucking opportunity.
I just think he's finally priced up this week, though. I don't think he's been in the 7Ks. I think he's been mid to high sixes.
yeah.
And so now he's finally at 7-3. And so he's mushed in with Eckler, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, and Nick Chubb. I think he's going to come in a little lower owned. And he's still going to get all the high value touches like you guys are talking about. Like there's nobody there to snipe him when they get in close. So I think he's interesting. Another guy going off the board again is Chris Carson. Brian, right before you hopped on, I was talking about how I think Carson could be the best running back leverage play on the slate if Russell Wilson ends up popular. Over the last 4 weeks, the Giants defense ranks 31st in explosive play rate, explosive run rate allowed. They've allowed 8 explosive runs on only 46 attempts. And now you get Chris Carson, who's known for, busting off big runs. We just saw one last week for his touchdown run.
Yep.
And Carlos Hyde looked awful last week. He got 29 yards on only 17 touches, whereas Carson went for 59 yards on 10 touches. So Carson's definitely the more efficient back, and we've known that. He just came back from injury, and he's still trying to recover a little bit from that. But I think week 2, we finally see him get utilized more in this game, and especially in a matchup where the Giants have been giving up more production on the ground recently than they have if you were to look at their whole season numbers. So I kind of need to dig into, maybe there's an injury or two that they're dealing with on the defensive line that could be allowing that, or maybe a linebacker. But looking at the explosive rates allowed, they're 31st over the last 4 weeks. So I think that's an interesting trend for the Giants there on defense. And then the other guy, Montgomery's he's an obvious one. I agree with Kev. It's, the more I think about fading him, the more you just look at his opportunities, like his attempts and his targets and his price. And now he's playing the Lions, and it's so hard to get off him. But the other guy you need to monitor this week is Myles Gaskin at 5,900, playing the Bengals. If he comes back from injury, he was their bell cow when he was playing. He was, getting all the high value touches down near the goal line, getting a bunch of targets. And the Bengals are, one of the better matchups, no matter how you slice it. So
what is your guys' take on the Saints situation here? Because on one hand, you have Alvin Kamara, who's 7K, which on any other time we would be like, smash him in. He's 100%. But with one, he's dealing with, I think, a foot injury. But also on top of that, with Taysom Hill back there, he's just not dumping off and looking for him. He's just taking off and running.
Yep.
Which is severely limiting Alvin Kamara's upside. Now, could they look to change that this week and really try to get the ball to Alvin Kamara? Because they've also, it should be said that too, that they've really pretty much commanded both games that he started. Like they've had. Right. They've been in great game scripts. They didn't really have to do anything else. So they didn't really have to open up the offense and force them to do more. So that should be said. So, I mean, Alvin Kamara is probably going to be like 3% owned. And so that's always with his upside is there. But also, Latavius Murray at 5,900. I mean, we saw over the last 2 weeks, he's had 31. He's at 31 attempts.
I like it, Kev.
And when he goes off, he goes off like last week. I mean, he had 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. So he's still only 5,900. So, and that seems to be like what they're more wanting to do, anyways. It's just if they are going to hand the ball off, it's to Latavius Murray, where they're really wanting to run the ball and utilize Taysom Hill's upside as a runner. And so, what is your guys' thoughts though, just on these two in general? Because I will say Atlanta has been good against the run this year. They've been a much better run defense than they have been a pass defense,
especially since they fired their head coach too.
I was going to say they've actually been a better defense in general, limiting production since Dan Quinn's been gone, and it's been Raheem Morris, which I mean, no surprise there. He's a defensive-minded head coach, so they should be getting better on that side of the football. I think for me though, Kev, it would come down to, is Julio playing? And I mean, I would kind of want to report from Schefter, like on that, that Saturday night report that he's good to go, and monitoring pregame reports, he's good to go, and that we are not going to get a decoy situation. I just think that if Julio plays, your hope is that that game, the pace in that game could keep up. Like Atlanta can put up some points and kind of keep up with what New Orleans is doing, and that would make more sense to have Kamara involved. If Julio doesn't play, then I'm just going to drop down and play Latavius Murray on some lines in hopes that they can control, the tempo here and really come out with a win there at home. It just, if the game script just doesn't go right, I mean, you're gonna, what are you doing? You're playing Kamara and a guy like Eckler, or Kamara and a guy like Chubb. Like, it just really is going to hinder some of your builds from what the production is that we're seeing. And it really comes down, I mean, Taysom Hill is the offense, and I don't really want to play him, but it's clear that they want to run the offense through Taysom, and he's 6,300. So you're going to play Kamara for more when he doesn't even have the ball in his hands to do most of the stuff with. And then Latavius Murray is $400 cheaper than Hill. So that's kind of the leverage dichotomy, I guess, that I wanted to get to, is that like in a neutral game script, or in a game script where it's going to be a little bit more slow pace and maybe the Saints can kind of get their way with it. Like Latavius Murray at 5,900, I don't think anybody's going to consider him. And the thing too is, like, you got a guy like Jamal Williams here, and I know we're going to move on to wide receivers as I'm looking at the clock here, but I just wanted to talk about, a guy like Jamal Williams, because he's priced up at 6,100, and we just saw what the Packers were able to do in that game against the Bears was control. And that's why him and Jones saw the same amount of touches. I mean, Jamal Williams has a role on this team. The dude's good, and they want to get him involved. But I do think that having him there at 6,100 will keep a guy like Aaron Jones down on his price tag. And that kind of makes me want to get leverage on him, because even though I can't really trust Wentz right now, like Maddie, you had interest in Sanders, and like if Philly is somehow able to keep this somewhat, a close game, or at least competitive until the second half, then I think Jones is going to be on the field a majority of the time. I mean, it was made publicly here, Matt Nagy calls out the Bears defense, and the Bears defense, is mad about him, calling them out, and are they playing? Did they quit? Blah, 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 blah. The Packers just were able to take advantage of that. So I think people might look a little bit too much into the Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones split, and that's kind of what I like about playing Aaron Jones this week. Go ahead, Kev.
Other thing I was going to say is the last couple, I don't know if anybody really, I think DeAndre Swift, depending on what happens there, I don't know, that seemed wild to me. Like earlier in the day, it was something like he might have built something. The Adrian Peterson stuff came out where he said that like he hasn't really been acting like himself. He doesn't have the good energy. And then all of a sudden, like about an hour later after that, we get a report that he was taken off the concussion protocol, but he's actually dealing with he's sick, which is not COVID related. Yeah. So it now sounds like DeAndre Swift could actually play this weekend. I would say, but if he no longer does, if he's no longer has a concussion, then if it's just sick and he gets over it, then I think there's a possibility he could play. But if they're talking about him like not having good energy, then it also makes you wonder, like, well, would you actually play him? Because does he play limited snaps? Do they not run him out there for the full complement of snaps if they want to? But obviously, Matt Patricia's gone, so this is going to be something new that we're going to have to, take a look at and kind of see how this is going to play out with this. I know that Darren Bevel came out and said that they want to play a very high-paced style of football over the last, last month of the season here. So I don't know. I think DeAndre Swift at 6,500 is somewhat interesting of a play, but like I think there's a lot of variables there where that could go the wrong way. Not if Swift is playing. I don't think you can do that if Swift is playing.
Okay.
My response is if the Lions are going to play nuclear, give me as many guys on the opposing team as I can fit. And this week it's the Bears. But like if the Lions are going to play fast and the opposing team gets more touches, give me Allen Robinson and Montgomery.
Well, that's kind of what they did. Kind of what they did with Matt Stafford though last year before he got hurt. Like everyone was talking about how the pace they were looking to throw deep all the time and go deep with it, and so that's kind of what people were expecting from this year. But they really haven't done that. But I mean, they've also dealt with injuries, and Matt Stafford's missing time. But I don't know. Like I think that is something to monitor. But and then lastly, I don't think I ever really talked about it. You actually asked me about it, but I never really said anything about it. And that was Jonathan Taylor at 5,700. This one is tough because like I see like different scenarios here because like I can see Jonathan Taylor. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he scored 30 DraftKings points this weekend. Would not surprise me one bit. Houston's run defense is historically bad. So bad.
He just smashed them.
Yes. Like it is so it is hard not to love Jonathan Taylor. He's back from the concussion or the COVID protocol. So he's back. It's a great matchup. Houston now does not have Will Fuller, so that limits their probably upside on passing the ball. So maybe that, if they're not able to get into a big lead, you're not really going to have to worry about Nyheim Hines. And we saw the last time they played that they really tried to get the ball more to Jonathan Taylor, and this is the prime breakout game spot for him. And he's only 5,700, but it's also Frank Reich, and he seems to always want to play the hot hand approach here, and that's what scares me with him and like really committing to him, because I wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden Nyheim Hines got 25 touches again, or somehow Jordan Wilkins started the game hot and got and got more run than Jonathan Taylor. So it's certainly a very risky play, but I think one that could end up being very profitable depending on what his ownership comes in at, because I can also see a lot of people wanting to play him because of how good the matchup is. So if he's going to be low owned, then I probably am going to have I'm definitely going to have some Jonathan Taylor at 5,700 because the upside's certainly there.
No, that's fair, Kev, and yeah, like you, I mean, it's so I try not to. I do to a certain extent look into matchups a lot, but I mean, you're saying like the Houston defense has been paying off dividends. I mean, all season long, so it's not even anything to really get cute about. It's just a matter of do we hit on the right play this week? Is it going to be Taylor? Is it going to be Hines? Is somehow Jordan Wilkins get worked in? It's really crazy. And we didn't touch on this, but Phillip Rivers, he's dealing with some stuff, but is he playing? Or are they acting like he's going to be out there, or what's the deal there with him? I know he's going through something.
To me, it sounds like he's going to play. He's just dealing with a really bad toe injury that, he's just going to have to struggle through. So like that tells me if they get up, that's what's going to happen. Is they're just going to keep turning around and handing it off, and Houston's not going to be able to stop them. So, yeah, I think Taylor he's very interesting. I'm just curious. There's a lot that can go wrong in that backfield because like Hines and Wilkins can definitely steal so many touches from him. So it's probably going to be a scenario where if he's popular, I'm not going to play him and hope for the best. And if he's not popular, I will play him and hope for the best.
Right.
So,
the only other something I also want to ask about these two as well would be, if DeForest Buckner's out, would you have any interest in David Johnson, who sounds like he's going to be back this week? Now without Will Fuller, they're going to have to start using the running backs even more in the passing game, I would think. But it is a super thin play because David Johnson is like the king of like 12 fantasy points, and that's all he's ever getting. That's all he gets you, right?
I just don't know if it's a slate for it.
Dusty.
But the other one that I think is going to go completely overlooked is Geo Bernard at 5,200 against Miami.
Yep.
Like Miami's defense is certainly a lot better than what it was in previous years, but like Geo Bernard is still like getting the majority of the touches in this backfield. He is a pass catching running back. He's only 5,200. It's not a terrible matchup against Miami. So like I just think that I think somebody that is going to have no ownership is going to go completely overlooked, because there's really no like 4K running backs that I look at this week and really I'm like, yeah, I really want to play that guy. Like there's none. Like I would love to play Cam Akers, but I don't trust fucking Sean McVay to actually do the right thing and actually play Cam Akers like they should. And if I miss out on Cam Akers because of it, then I miss out on Cam Akers because of it. But I think like as low as I could possibly go would be Geo. But I don't know if you really have to. If you're going to go that low, why not just play David Montgomery or something like that? But so it is probably a thin play. But I do think Geo does have kind of like a 20 to 25 point upside.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
Let's talk about wide receiver as we are getting into this, and I'm just gonna start it off with the Will Fuller thing. I mean, this dude fucking ruined the slate for me. Like, I was so happy to go back to the Deshaun Watson.
I was gonna stack that game every which way,
and just infuriating. I mean, I guess that is what it is. Brian Cushing is your strength and conditioning coach, Mr. No Neck. You're able to
take this in a contract year. It'll give you all the stats.
Right. Exactly. I mean, we didn't see that Will Fuller injury yet, so I guess something had to have happened. But I digress. So we got, at the top, I think it's interesting. You got Devontae Adams at 9K against this Philadelphia secondary who, I kind of forgot about. I mean, these guys are just so forgettable outside of Slay, and even Slay hasn't been himself. But these guys like Slay, Avonte Maddox, Jalen Mills, if he's out there playing safety or corner or whatever. I mean, this secondary is just so bad. He should be able to find ways to just eat in this matchup. And so when you're looking at the 9K situations and at running back, it's so hard for people to miss out those get it right or, feel like they need to get it right. So, people will play Cook, they will play Henry, and it's going to be hard to play both, pay up at wide receiver as well too. So I love getting to some Adams exposure there, even if I'm not playing Aaron Rodgers. I think I might play around with some teams where I could still get Adams and just hope that all the production goes to him, that we can get, one of those, 150-yard games where he scores twice, because it's totally within the realm of possibility how this team is playing and looking to get him the ball. And, talk about a situation there with he was just popular, or I'm sorry, not he, but paying up for wide receiver was just popular a week ago, where you had, guys in great games that people wanted to play up for and they didn't really hit, like Keenan Allen, Stephon Diggs. They didn't get you there. So maybe people are down on paying wide receiver. So I like trying to get to him. Outside of Adams, we got DK Metcalf at 8,200, who's going to be popular against this Giants secondary there. I think, people will play him as a one-off if they're not even playing Russ, to kind of get what they see as the upside of what Metcalf, can do on a slate. And people might be trying to say, oh, he could be the Tyreek Hill of this week or whatever. It's just the Seattle offense. If you think that they're going to pop off, it's hard to trust. Keenan Allen at 8,100. Those are your AK and above guys on DraftKings. Then we got guys like Hopkins going against the Rams. It's a tough matchup. AJ Brown, like we talked about, I mean, he's 7,600. I think honestly, I feel like he should be in the AK range with what he's been doing, but I guess maybe the production hasn't been there enough to warrant it. Tyler Lockett coming in at 7,400. I'm actually surprised by this. I thought he'd be lower than that, but that's going to be a tough play for me outside of a stack there. Adam Thielen, 7,300. This guy's always in play, coming off of the COVID list. I'm not sure how many people will, want to play him if they're playing, guys like Cook and Jefferson hitting last week. People will go to him because he's cheaper at 6,900. But Thielen with like 82% of his red zone target share, or something crazy like that, he's catching passes in the red zone, and 10 touchdowns on the season. I mean, this dude's been doing everything. This Jacksonville defense can't stop anybody. Calvin Ridley, he'll be popular if he plays and if Julio is out. And then you got Michael Thomas, and those are your 7K guys and above. I mean, let's just, as I open it up for you guys, and Maddie, I'll start with you, but you touched on it, like Allen Robinson coming in at 6,700. Like, this is one of the reasons why I probably won't have as much Montgomery as maybe I should, or maybe I feel like I need to, is because I can feel comfortable playing Allen Robinson at 6,700 for the target share that this guy is getting. I mean, he is by far the best option in this offense. I think Bill Lazor, who's now calling the plays, knows that. And regardless of if it's Foles or Trubisky back there, and we know it's going to be Trubisky this week, they're just peppering him with targets. I mean, because he catches everything. And, Anthony Miller, he's been frustrating this year. Darnell Mooney was coming on strong there, but he, are they running the right routes or whatever? Cole Kmet, he's dropping passes. Jimmy Graham is Jimmy Graham. There's just not a lot of options there that, Mitchell can feel like he can trust. And that means that Allen Robinson is leaned upon. And not only that, but you're talking about a Detroit secondary. You go back to the Thanksgiving game. I mean, watch the tape. Brandon Cooks left alone. Will Fuller left alone. Jordan Akins left alone. Like, these guys were just, and Duke Johnson with the fucking wheel route touchdown. I mean, this secondary is absolutely abysmal there. Desmond Trufant doesn't scare me. Rookie Okudah, he's done nothing. The other guys on the secondary have done nothing. It's just an absolutely smash spot for Allen Robinson. Love getting to him. I talked about Robert Woods. I do kind of want pieces of this Rams and Arizona game just because, the Vegas total there. And I feel like it will end up getting overlooked outside of game stacks being on the 3:00 slate. And I think there's merit to having some of those guys there. So Cooks would be it for me. He comes in at a little cheaper. Love Corey Davis at 5,100. I know our boy D-Brow, he's been talking about having Pittman this week. And I do like Pittman, but I mean, T.Y. Hilton, like if Rivers is out there, I could see myself playing him against this Houston secondary. He's 4,300. It doesn't necessarily make you feel good. Probably even the Jets wide receivers are in better spots with Denzel Mims at his price, Perryman at 3,900 at his price, even Crowder, who disappointed a lot, but you're looking at the slot going against the Raiders, a position that we've tried to attack in DFS time and time again. And Jamison Crowder now back with Sam Darnold. It was weird last week. The targets weren't really there. Perryman was getting a lot more of the work than he had in the past, but there's always merit for me to play Jamison Crowder as long as Darnold's back there. And then a guy that I'll be playing, I mean, if I have interest in Carr, I'm going to dabble into some rugs this week. These corners on the Jets, I mean, they're going to be able to give up these big plays, and all it takes for Ruggs is one. And I know his price isn't really it doesn't really make you feel good outside of stacks, and I would probably play him with Carr only. But I'm looking at Ruggs, and I like him. I mean, the PFF matchup is Lamar Jackson, a guy who we've been targeting against all year, and he runs a 4.5. Ruggs is way faster than that. I just think he can burn these guys in the secondary. They won't have any way to keep up with him. So looking at Ruggs on some Carr teams. But Maddie, what say you at wide receiver this week? Where are you looking at?
I just want to add on the Ruggs call that Aguilar has been missing practice this week to start the week. So if he's out, definitely a boost to Ruggs there. Because Ruggs and Aguilar, looking at the air yards profile and all that, they've been essentially the same wide receivers. So Aguilar's got 22% of the air yards, only 12% of the targets. Ruggs has 28% of the air yards and 12% of the targets. So while everybody's been talking up about Aguilar and how good of a season he's had, Ruggs has really had, the same profile of targets that Aguilar's had. He just hasn't hit on them. So I think, if Aguilar's out, I think Ruggs is a great call against the Jets there. And just to piggyback off your Allen Robinson call and how much of a ball hog he's been in that offense, he's got 32% of the air yards in the offense. Then the next highest is Mooney at 22. And then on the target share side, he's got 25% of the targets, and the next highest is Anthony Miller at 15. So, I mean, it's really like it's A-Rob is getting all of it, and then everybody else is just kind of splitting it less than 15%, just among a bunch of dudes. So, yeah, 6,700 for an alpha wide receiver against Detroit, who should be without Trufant. They're banged up, and like you said, they didn't even play defense last week. I don't even know what I watched on Thanksgiving. Houston they're going to open by 30 yards and
right,
whatever. So it's a great matchup there for A-Rob. I love him. And I think people with how much they're going to play Montgomery. I don't think a lot of people will play both or just fade Montgomery for Allen Robinson on some teams. So I think that it's great leverage to include A-Rob this week. So he's definitely one of my favorites. And then I'm going to skip all the way down to talk about a couple guys in the 4 to 5K range.
There you go.
I am going to continue to bang the Corey Davis drum until I lose my vocal cords. Because
until he's priced at 6K?
Until he's priced at the same price as A.J. Brown. I mean, they literally – it's just like Ruggs and Aguilar. They have the same profile. A.J. Brown's getting 32% of the air yards, 25% of the targets. Corey Davis is getting 34% of the air yards and 23% of the targets. So, they're separated by less than 2% on both metrics right there. Everything checks out, and there also is news that A.J. Brown popped up with a hip injury this week. And so if he were to miss, I will not have a team that does not have Corey Davis on it at 5,100. I mean, it's a matchup with Cleveland, who Cleveland has been one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL this year.
Look what Glennon was able to just do.
Exactly.
What is happening?
Cleveland's pass defense sucks, and that's why I love Tannehill so much. And if AJ Brown's out, that does give me a bump down to Tannehill, but at the same time, that gives me a full target share hog to Corey Davis. So I really like him at 5,100. The other guy at 5,100 I like is Jamison Crowder. I think he's very interesting in that Vegas Jets game. Him and Denzel Mims have really been the two main guys on that offense. So, going again back to the predictable metrics for pass catching wide receivers, you've got Denzel Mims, who's seen 35% of the air yards and 26% of the targets. Great play at 4,100 against Las Vegas. And then Jamison Crowder, 22% of the air yards and 24% of the targets. So both of those guys, you combine them, you've got 50% of the targets on the offense. Jets are always going to be playing from behind. We know Darnold loves to throw to Crowder. The thing with Crowder is all his routes are short, whereas Mims kind of stretches the field a little bit. So Crowder's definitely more of a PPR play, which is what you get on DraftKings. 5,100 just feels too cheap for a guy we've seen multiple times go to the mid-20s with Darnold as his quarterback. So I think he's very interesting. And then I mentioned Mims. So I think he's interesting. But yeah, you touched on Ruggs as well, who I wanted to bring up just because of the Aguilar news. I will be very high on Ruggs if we get Aguilar out this week.
No, that would be great.
I mean, him and Jacobs, man. If Aguilar and Jacobs are out, then all of a sudden you've got a condensed offense against the Jets, and that would even be a bump to Waller for me.
Yeah, bump to Waller. I mean, even a bump to Renfro.
And Renfro, yeah.
Kind of saw him kind of pop off in a couple matchups with when Ruggs was missing and Aguilar was kind of coming into fruition. So yeah, I mean, he definitely has a role in this offense too. So that game is very intriguing as it is right now, and it becomes even more so intriguing when we can say, okay, like we still have the main pieces from this game, or outside of Jacobs if he misses, but main enough to make this still pop off if things go right. And so you're looking at a game stack there where you could have like Crowder, Carr, Ruggs, and Waller, and just hope for things to go right there. And still have a lot of salary to do stuff at the running back position as well too. Kev, what are you looking at wide receiver this week? What's standing out to you on Thursday night?
He's going to start with a $3,500 Houston Texan.
No, God. Oh,
First of all, fuck both of you, okay, for trying to come in and steal my fucking thunder with Denzel Mims. I said before all of you guys today in our chat that it's Denzel Mims week, and that is exactly what I said.
And then I just referenced.
And you guys try to come in and just steal the thunder away. Okay, it is Denzel fucking Mims week, boys and girls. I'm gonna have a ton of Denzel Mims.
How much is a ton?
Fuck ton.
I want a number.
A fuck ton. Okay, a fuck ton's more than a ton. All right,
Derek. I don't got time for you in chat, buddy. Derek's siding with Kevin. I don't.
Okay,
go on somewhere.
I like this. So I can put this up here. It's like you're actually here, Derek. Anyways, listen. Denzel Mims, right? You've already laid some of the case out. You didn't do a good enough job, so I'm gonna do a better job than what you did.
Hey, okay? I was a little foreplay. Now you got to take it all the way.
Well, that's what I do. I finish the job.
Oh my God, I love it.
So, like you mentioned, Denzel Mims right now is fifth in the league in terms of market air with market air.
He's so excited he can't even talk. He's having a brain aneurysm right now.
Regardless,
just ruling
market share of air yards, he is fifth in the league. He also has a 30% target share. And you mentioned Jamison Crowder, and a lot of people thought that Jamison Crowder, once Sam Darnold came back, that all of a sudden he was going to go back to getting those 10 to 15 targets. It didn't happen last week, boys and girls. He got 5 fucking targets last week, and he only ran, I think, 29 routes. So it is the Denzel Mims show, and we are getting a matchup against the Raiders, who the Raiders secondary is fucking trash. Trayvon Mullins is garbage. Has allowed almost 500 yards and 3 touchdowns on the season. Like, Denzel Mims at 4,100 is going to smash this week. I'm calling it right now. He's going to put up at least 20 fantasy points this week, 20 DK points. We can book it right now. He's going to take one to the house on this defense. And so I love Denzel Mims at 4,100. It is a terrific spot for him. And so I am starting my build with Denzel Mims. He is going to be on most of my teams, and I am here for Denzel Mims.
Will you have a Sam Darnold team?
I may just get wild and build a Sam Darnold team, but regardless,
I hope you do. If you're playing that much,
yeah, I would. I'd sprinkle some Crowder in and run it back with like a Ruggs or whichever running back plays.
I was going to say, who's your run
Waller?
back?
Probably Waller.
That's fair.
I can see Ruggs too pop off.
Ruggs. If you play Darnold, Ruggs, Crowder, and Mims, that's a full game stack for like 15K. It's so cheap.
Would you play Crowder or Perryman, Kev?
I feel like Perryman and Denzel Mims would be a little bit redundant in terms of what they do. So I would probably be Crowder.
Okay.
But so I got that out of the way. So I had to bring the heat higher than you guys did on Denzel Mims, so I can state my point here. Okay. But
we're just warming it up for you.
I'm just saying. I'm just like, these motherfuckers are trying to steal my Denzel Mims type. Anyway, so the other guys I'll be looking to play too. I also really like Michael Thomas this week at 7K. I'm praying that he's not going to be chalk because I think he's a terrific play this week. He is still, if you look at his overall numbers that's coming back, he hasn't had that Michael Thomas smash game that we've kind of been looking for, or that you're kind of grown accustomed to. And I do think in this matchup where you typically want to throw the ball, and we saw Taysom Hill the last time they played in a game that they dominated the Falcons. He still threw for 240 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, did not throw one for a touchdown here. But I do like Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas accounts for 55% of the air yards here in this offense and 32% of the target share, as well as he is number 1 in the league in terms of over the last 4 weeks and weighted opportunity rating as well. So I like Michael Thomas a lot in this matchup against the Falcons. So I think that is somewhere. I'm hoping that he's not complete chalk, which if he was, then I would probably come off of it a little bit, but still 7K Michael Thomas is ridiculously too cheap. So I really do like Michael Thomas. I totally agree on the Allen Robinson. I don't have anything more to put in on that because it's Allen Robinson, and I think he's going to smash. I've already told you guys how much I want to play Mitch Trubisky. So I'm playing all the Allen Robinson this week as well. And I really, really appreciated him liking the people that were tagging him and like, hey, you should come to Green Bay. You should come here. You should come. I should have done a Chiefs one. That would have been a good one too. He would look good in red and gold, wouldn't he, Ryan?
No, he would.
Yeah, that arrowhead on the side. Oh yeah, I mean he would eat in that offense.
He would be the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, it's disrespectful
I mean, he's a top 10 guy playing with Blake Bortles and Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles.
Yeah.
Like
that's truth biscuit to you guys.
Poor guy.
Anyways,
Trubisky.
Oh my God! So put the eggnog down, Kev. Put the eggnog down.
Hey, so also I like Devontae Parker at 6,400. I think that's another direction we go. Last week he had 14 targets, but I can only play him if Tua is out because I will not play him with Tua in the lineup.
Right. Is he priced accordingly, Kev? Like I'm looking at that price and I don't know. I don't know
what's too high personally.
It's only 500 more, but it just does something for my psyche. Like I was looking and I was like, oh yeah, I could get Parker for 5K something, and now he's 6,400, and I'm like, nah, I'll just play Robinson at 67
or Julio at 66 if he plays.
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on where I'm sitting and where the build is taking me, and depending on where I could fit him in. But I still think that the ceiling is there for him to get 25, 30 against Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati's defense is awful. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, we know, will pepper him with targets. I mean, who else is there right now? It's essentially him. Basically, last week, Devontae Parker got him all the way down the field, and then they just punched it in with Mike Gesicki twice last week inside the red zone. So
frustrating.
And I also Jarvis Landry, 6,200, is finally in a game where the Browns had to throw the football. Jarvis Landry went off, right? Had a monster game where he had 140 yards and a touchdown, in a game that none of us thought they were going to throw the ball. I think everybody thought that it was going to be a game where they run the rock 50 times against the Jag, and they just came out looking to throw that game. I was really surprised in how that game kind of played out. The running, Nick Chubb ended up getting there in the second half when they finally started to use him more. But I do think if we think that this Tennessee side is going to go ham, and if you're going to run it back with somebody, it's going to be Jarvis Landry. Because if you think that this game is going to be good enough to where Ryan Tannehill goes off, like that, to me, I think you play Jarvis Landry at 6,200 because he is going to see all the targets. Either between him or Austin Hooper, I think are the two plays here in this game because there's nobody else. With Odell out, I'm never going to play busted ass Rashard Higgins. Like, that's never going to happen.
Your boy, Kev, your boy.
Donovan Peoples-Jones doesn't have a role. So it really, to me, I think it's Jarvis Landry. Like, I think you could pretty much expect, as long as we're looking at good weather here, there's no 70-mile-an-hour winds that they have to deal with, which we felt like, for like 3 straight weeks, that was Cleveland's problem, was every single week they were getting terrible weather, and that's really why they weren't able to do anything in the passing game. Last week, in the first time they get good pass or good weather, Jarvis Landry goes off. So at 6,200, I just think that is ridiculously too cheap for what he can do. I think, again, 15 targets is not out of the range of possibility for him, and so I do like Jarvis Landry. And then the other couple, I think Robert Woods, 5,900 is too cheap against Arizona, and then Brandon Cooks, I think he's going to be chalky as hell.
He is. He's going to be the highest owned wide receiver.
I like Brandon Cooks this week, but at 5,600, and he's going to be complete chalk. I just figure I'll find different ways. And then the other one would be Christian Kirk at 5,200. His price has dropped. He has not had that big game in a while. And I think with all the attention going to be going, and probably exclusively Jalen Ramsey on DeAndre Hopkins, I think Christian Kirk at 5,200 has slate breaking upside where he could get you 30.
My concern playing wide receivers against the Rams
is they've been elite against wide receivers.
Yeah, they've allowed one top 12 wide receiver the entire year, and that was Debo last week. And I mean, you look at they played Dallas week 1, Buffalo was Stephon Diggs, Chicago Allen Robinson, Seattle 3 weeks ago, Tampa 2 weeks ago, and then last week San Francisco. So I mean, they've played some good wide receiver groups. That's my concern with Arizona is just wanted to toss that in there.
Is Fitzgerald off of the list?
I haven't seen, to be honest.
Because if he's not off the list, then I think we can go back to Isabella here in that game.
He is still on the list.
Whatever his price tag is, I don't really care. I mean, he was on the list last week, and Isabella was out there. I mean, shout out to D-Bro, who was kind of on top of that last week, early on, and was referencing that. But you're
still
talking
3,200.
3,200, yeah.
Yeah, 3,200.
I think he went up. He was 3K. He was 3K, so he's up 200.
Right. And I mean, to me, like, it's kind of this similar, like, if I'm going to be willing to play Christian Kirk, like, I might as well just go down and play Isabella, for that much cheaper because he offers the same amount of upside. They're both, big play home run hitters. And just looking last week, like, Isabella was all over the field. Some of those didn't work out. And, Kyler just really didn't look like himself. That was disappointing because I really liked playing him as a leverage play. But hopefully, we got another week under the belt. Hopefully he's getting a little bit healthier. And if this game does stay competitive on both sides, I think Isabella at 32 can, pay off that price tag for sure. I mean, all it takes is one play.
Yeah. One. Also, I think an even better spot if you want to play a 3K wide receiver would be one of the Bears wide receivers. Darnell Mooney's only 3,400 and Anthony Miller's only 3,100.
You can't trust them, Kev.
I mean, Darnell Mooney had 9 targets last week with Mitch Trubisky. I mean, what is a much better matchup against the secondary this Detroit secondary who's going to have everybody out.
No, I think that it just feels a little thin because even though they're saying they want to play fast, okay, so what does that really mean, Bevel? And so then without Swift out there, like, what are we really doing? Like, Swift out, Galladay out, like, or potentially out, like, what is this offense really going to look like? And so to me, I just want the surefire things in that game. Like, I mean, Montgomery, okay, that's fine. Like, I probably will be underweight on him, but I'll have some exposure to him because of what that means. And Allen Robinson, love him. But the Detroit side, they really have I need to see it from them before I can start investing in ancillary pieces in a game that they're in. And, like, especially like Miller, no chance. Mooney on stacks, I guess, maybe, but I just don't think they have enough upside to really pay off. Because when I play a 3K guy, I do want to get in the teens, and I just feel they don't really have red zone roles. Just the production feels a little bit thin in a game.
I wish you would stop disrespecting my man like that, Darnell Mooney. Okay, like you're supposed to be a Bears fan over here. Where's your Bears pride? Bear down, Bear down, Ryan.
I like him. Mitch can focus on one guy. That's going to be Robinson.
Oh, I know he does, and that's Allen Robinson. But he still saw 9 targets last week. And we've seen big games come from, like, last year when Mitch Trubisky played, from, like, Anthony Miller and stuff like that. Like, there's still in the range of possibilities for my guy, Darnell Mooney, to have a big game. And at 3,400, he doesn't have to do a ton. He gets you 3 for 70 and a touchdown. It's wheels up.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, too, had to do with the Packers just taking them to town and forcing the Bears' hand into having to try and get back in that game as well, too. I mean, I think that you're looking at a situation where one of two things goes right. Either Montgomery is smashing and, like, they're in a neutral game script and they can still get him the ball, or something went terribly wrong and the Lions are up big, and then guys like Mooney and Miller are getting work, and then Montgomery on the back end is not able to really succeed as much because he's not being utilized in the sense that we think he would be.
If the game stays close, I'll say this: that Chicago, not even just the last 4 weeks, but the last 8 weeks have been a neutral game scripts. They throw the ball from weeks 5 through 8. They threw the ball 67% of the time in neutral game scripts, and they also, in the last 4 weeks, they're 64%.
Right. Those were falls too.
Right.
Trubisky. So, but yeah, I mean, you like Trubisky, so I definitely would have him with another pass catcher for sure on those teams. But as one-offs, I don't know if they do anything for me.
Well, I'm going to be winning all the money this week then, boys. Christmas is coming early.
Anything Jarvis Landry at 6,200 too, Kev. I don't know about that. That's a tough pill to swallow as well.
I would only play him in a game stack because I do think you can, if you're going to run Tannehill, I think you need 2 Browns on the other side. One would be Chubb for me, and then either Landry or Hooper. I kind of side with Hooper just because of his price. And how cheap and how gross tight end is. I've been trying to jam tight ends in from my stacks or game stacks. So I think Hooper would be.
Maddie, I was just going to say, let's talk about tight end. I mean, you're hitting it on the head. There's no Kelsey on this slate. We already know the deal with Kittle and, Darren Waller. People, a lot of talk about dynasty and where these tight ends rank and who falls into what category or whatever. It just, for the Waller truthers, it just has not been to fruition. And I'm going to bank on the talent more so than what the results have been. And it's just one of those things. Like, I just never play Waller when he's popular. And when he's not popular on a slate, like you're saying, Maddie, we're tight end, and it's been all season, but is once again gross. Like, I'll play him here against the Jets. He's 6,100, so definitely takes up some salary there, and paying down a tight end is if you've gotten it right, it has paid off, but it's just so ugly. I mean, outside of Waller, you got Hawkinson at 5K, Evan Ingram at 4,900, who had a great week last week, and 9 targets, 129 yards, was taking Cincinnati to the woodshed there. So goes against Seattle team there. It's just going to be hard with Colt McCoy at the helm to kind of trust that position. Hunter Henry there going against New England, not a good matchup for him. He's 4,800. Dallas Goedert 43. I think he'll be extremely popular against Green Bay. Mike Gesicki 42. Jonnu Smith is questionable but 41. And then you got Hayden Hurst who's dealing with an injury, who comes in at 4K. I believe he was a non-participant this week. So, yeah, you're looking at, I mean, the 3K range is really what's sticking out to me. I mean, Kyle Rudolph, yet again, he's 3,400 against Jacksonville. Can definitely get behind that once again. Robert Tonyan in Packers stacks, going against Philly. This guy has a role on the team. I'm happy to not see, Jace Sternberger. It's frustrating to see Mercedes Lewis kind of taking some work, but he definitely, has found a place, even with Lazard being back. I think he makes some sense in stacks. You just were talking about Austin Hooper, Matty. I'll let you riff on him. Outside of that, I mean, it's really just kind of pick your stacks. I mean, for me, I don't really know what injury situations are looking like, if that'll free up something. A guy like Trey Burton has been frustrating all year going against this Houston game. I mean, if we can project points being scored, then I think maybe he could make some sense. I might have some interest in multi-entry, but I'm really looking at paying up for Waller and then probably taking a chance on one of those 3K guys on builds that I don't have Waller on. Kev, I'll start with you and then go to Maddie on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty straightforward for me. TJ Hawkinson, 5K against Chicago. I'm down with that. Mike Gesicki, 4,200. I am down with that. Austin Hooper, 3,800. Give me some of that. That's or Jordan Akins, I think, also at 2,900.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
If they're not going to be, without Will Fuller, somebody else is going to have to step it up here, and I think that very well could be the $2,900 Jordan Akins. That's that. Like, I don't know. Like, there's not a lot that I feel like great about. Like, of course, Dallas Goedert as well. I think you could obviously go there. Whether Zach Ertz comes back or not, I don't give a fuck about Zach Ertz. Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm pretty much just going to stand at.
Before Maddie, I toss it over to you. Just with Mike Gesicki there, I've played him and I've played Fitzpatrick as well too. I had him on the Millie last week, and I always like playing Gesicki, but I guess I've watched some of these Dolphins games there on Red Zone, and these guys, Smythe and Adam Shaheen coming from the dead or whatever, like they have definitely been going into his workload. I'm not sure how much it is, but does that make you does that temper your expectations that you have to have with Gesicki there? I don't know what it was last week, but I know like before Ryan Tannehill was benched, these guys were getting run exclusively, and then even when Tua came in, I know Shaheen was still out there seeing some snaps. So that's just frustrating because I think Gesicki is leaps and bounds the better option, especially with Preston Williams being put on IR, but it just makes it hard when those guys are still getting looks to try.
Well, I mean, I think some of those weeks, I mean, he's not seeing a ridiculous amount of targets. He's only has one game over double-digit targets, and that was week 2 against Buffalo. Other than that, he pretty much gives you 5 targets every single game. But the last 2 weeks, he has played 70% of the targets. He has run 30-plus routes. And then last week, I mean, he only had 2 for 35. If he doesn't find the end zone, it probably wasn't a great week for Mike Gesicki, who had 11.5. But
right.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. Maddie, Austin Hooper, any other guys that you're interested in?
Yeah, Hooper, he's getting 20% of the targets there in Cleveland. Obviously, they're a low pass volume offense. But if we think that Tennessee, makes him turn into a shootout, then I definitely like him at 3,800. And the other side of that game, I really think Ferkser is interesting regardless of Jonnu's status. The more I look into it, I mean, the guy ranks. He's 16th in the league among tight ends in team target share, and he's 19th in the NFL in tight ends in targets to tight end position. Like you look at him on the leaderboard as a whole tight end group for the entire league, and he's in the top 20 in those 2 categories, and then he's 27th in red zone targets. So he hasn't really been used as much when they get in close. He's got 5 red zone targets on the year, and Jonnu has 14. So I can definitely see myself tilting if Jonnu catches one. But I mean, 2,500, he's min price, and he's going to have a role in the offense. 15% of the targets there in Tennessee. I think Ferkser is interesting regardless of what Jonnu's status is. And even if Jonnu plays and he's limited and you get that slight boost, I don't think he's going to put up a goose egg. So I think it could be a week kind of similar to how we broke it down on the Thanksgiving slate, where it wasn't Logan Thomas the optimal because he caught a touchdown.
Yeah.
So it could be a similar week here where you just need to go touchdown hunting for a cheap guy because, there's not really many high ceiling options.
Yeah, and I guess, I talked about Rudolph and then talked about kind of how I like Thielen being back with his red zone role. So that kind of deters me a little bit on Rudolph, especially if he's going to be popular too, if people are just watching the box scores and not really looking into who really sees that share. I mean, that's why we liked Rudolph last week, because you had that share that was going from Thielen and Irv Smith to a certain extent too. With them seeing, I think it was like 23 red zone targets between the two of them. So that would then temper my expectations if Rudolph is going to yet be popular again, and maybe play Goddard or a guy like Cooper or something like that to get leverage there. Let's move on to defense if we don't have anything else at tight end. And so defense this week is interesting. I mean, Dolphins come in at 4,400 at the top. Then you got Packers at 3,800, which I kind of like them, even though they're the second highest priced defense with the Steelers off of the slate now. They're incredibly affordable on FanDuel at 4,100. So I like getting some exposure there. Wentz has just been a dumpster fire. Have fun with that, Kev. Outside of that, I mean, let's talk about paying down for defenses. And even though I like Carr in tournaments, I will have some exposure to Jets defense just because they're 2,100. I mean, even though their secondary is porous, at least they, have a home matchup here. Can they, we saw Carr throw 3 interceptions last week. I believe it was 2 or 3. Atlanta was able to take one to the house. Atlanta's defense has been better, and they have better personnel, I feel like, than the Jets. But really, it's just, how can I mess around with salary this week? And if I need to save some, I do have interest in them. But above that, I think that I don't know. I mean, I was looking at possibly getting to some of the Patriots at 2,400. I think that maybe I could talk myself into that. That's pretty much it. I think maybe I could talk myself into some Colts at 3K, just because Fuller is out, and if people are still going to be taking popular sides there with Cooks and Akins and Deshaun still, I think you could get some leverage there.
I've
beat the drum. We've all, I feel like, beat the drum of the Colts being overrated and how are they doing this and what's going on, and they haven't faced anybody. But it just seems, QT too. I heard that, Maddie. It just seems like if people are going to go that way, I'll be different. Try and go the other way and get some production there. Maddie, I'll pick it up with you. You're feeling the same way at defense, or what are you doing this week?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth with the Colts D. I think the Texans are going to be extremely popular, from Deshaun to Cooks to QT and then even Akins at the tight end position. So I think the Colts are a great leverage defense on the field. Outside of them, it's kind of gross down at the bottom. So I don't even know. I don't know what other leans you guys have. I mean, the Patriots maybe 2,400 against Justin Herbert, who he's been good, but he's also kind of reckless with the football. Like he forces footballs into very tight windows, and he will throw the ball down the field, which that's good things happen when you're a defense and the quarterback's throwing a bunch and he's throwing down the field a lot. So I think New England would probably be my punt defense.
Yeah, that's fair. Kev, what say you at defense this week?
The Chargers at 2,600 is fucking stupid. So I'm definitely going to go there against Cam and this Patriots offense. I'm about that life.
I don't hate it.
And then if I'm going to pay all the way down, I do like the Jets call. And, with Fitz, things can get a little bit weird. So I don't mind $2,300 Bengals. And that's, I don't know. I mean, that's probably it. Like, I don't mind the Packers because of what they do, but or with Carson Wentz's ability to turn the football over, but that's just too high for me. I don't think I'd probably get there at 3,800.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, again, we preach this all the time. I mean, defense should be one of the last positions that you're putting in, if not the last, to figuring out what salaries you have and things like that. Don't be looking to lock in a defense just because you think they're in a good spot and seeing what your build is. Always important to get those skill position players because it's any given Sunday, things can go weird and things can happen with defense. So just by locking in the top does not mean you're gonna get anything there. But yeah, I mean, the Packers, if they can get pressure on Wentz and get sacks there, I mean, that's just gonna really pay off dividends. And really they should be priced in the 4K range. The fact that they're not kind of makes me want to have interest in them just because they are the second highest priced on the slate. So I think that'll mess with some people. But the way that salaries are, if we don't get some of these guys ruled in, I think you can make some balanced builds or, even take some cheaper guys that, get you to a Packers D and make you still feel comfortable about your team. But yeah, I mean, on FanDuel, they're 4,100. The highest price is 5K. I love them there. And speaking of the Colts too, they're the fourth highest price on FanDuel, and they're 3K on DK. So definitely a value you're getting there. Anything else you guys got before we kind of, Kev? I know you got some things you want to talk to the people about. We got to do our show build, which was phenomenal last week, and
it's smashed.
175, I believe, was the place that it came in. 203 points, had Henry and had Tyreek Hill with Mahomes. So didn't matter that we got 3. Antonio Brown could have been that much more special. 7
touchy subject.
Touchy subject as well. I hear you, Maddie. I hear you. But yeah, man, I appreciate you guys starting this out for us. Degenation, you guys got to hold down the fort with us, man. Degenation pod is where you can find us on Twitter. We appreciate all the interaction that we're getting from you guys. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Loving what we're seeing in the chat here of everybody interacting. Appreciate you guys rocking all along with us. And so as we get into the show build, I know, Maddie, you wanted to do something special this week with the people who have been rocking around. And so I'm gonna put it like this. So we were successful last week with our show build. So for the DFS show build here for week 13, I'm looking at the chat right now. And so we're gonna let you guys decide who we build this team around. So the first person to kind of chime in, shout out to whoever that is, whoever you guys want us to build the team around on this, we will make that happen here. So I'm curious to see where they go. I mean, this will definitely, hopefully they pick Jamison Crowder. So I'm gonna have to deal with having him on the team.
Denzel Mims, if we're really being honest about it.
Yeah. But no, I want the guys to kind of decide for us how we're building the team, and we do this team. It's in the $5 single entry. It's the huddle on DK. I believe 60K huddle is what it is. There's about 14,000 some people in there. It was a good redemption week for us, so we definitely want people to be involved in that as well. I'm gonna pull up the build here as we get into it.
Did chat go to sleep?
Yeah,
what's chat doing? I think they went to bed.
Understand what you're wanting to do. Listen, chat, everybody in the YouTube chat. What we want you guys to do is give us one play that we're going to build.
We're going to build around that player.
Okay, so it's up to you guys in
Y'all
the chat.
Kick off our team.
People that have been rocking in the chat with us the entire time.
It could be Montgomery. It could be Pittman. It could be Deshaun if you wanted to. It could be a defense like
Carson Wentz, whatever. You want to get weird. I mean,
Any team that's going to be good. I want to make sure that we have it in, or at least we can give a spot to them. Maybe we'll talk about it at the beginning of the show and get people right for it. But I want to make sure we leave it. Here we go.
All right, we got a Cooper Kupp.
David Haas. All right, appreciate you, David. You are getting us exposure to that Cardinals and Rams game, which we, talked about it being on the, high total on the slate, but really not much we can do with it. So Cooper Kupp is in there. He's going to be our wide receiver. Shout out to David Hess there for giving us the play. And now chat's lit. Now that David got the ball rolling, now chat wants to
now they must be on a lag. They might be on a little lag.
I forgot about that. There is. It's like a 20-second lag.
Okay, fair enough. But no, appreciate that. So we got Cooper Kupp, boys. Maddie, it's been a while since you've kind of taken the helm on a show team. So why don't you let us know where we're going next?
Oh, if you're going to give it to me, we're playing Ryan Tannehill.
Let's do it. Tanny. So we got Tannehill. We got Cooper Kupp.
Disrespectful. It was right there. We could have went Trubisky or Carson Wentz, and this is where we're going. I don't have faith in this lineup. Give me Jarvis Landry.
Oh God, of course. Let's go Corey Davis. What's back? Go ahead, Maddie.
Oh, man, y'all are gonna make me do this. I think that if you're playing Tannehill, it is very viable to stack 2 Browns. So I'm going to go with Nick Chubb, and we're going to see how this works out.
All right,
and just full-blown game stack that thing.
Yeah. Right now we got Tannehill, Chubb, Kupp, Landry, Corey Davis, running back, tight end, flex, and defense left. 46.75 per position. Kev's got the wheels turning there. What can I do with a cheap Darnell Mooney or Anthony Miller on this lineup?
Denzel Mims.
Kev, are you?
Yep. Give me Denzel Mims.
I told you.
Of course. Now let's see here. So I'm gonna put Kupp in the flex because that game's later. And let's see here. So flex now we got 48.66 per position. Jesus.
It's actually not bad after you punt defense. And you got a cheap tight end too. Like you can pay up at running back.
That is true.
Like if you were to plug in Jets D, that gives you 62.50 for a tight end and a running back, and all the tight ends are cheap, other than Waller.
Damn, I really want to play Eckler.
Throw him in.
But I think I'll like the build better if it's somebody else. Yeah, I'm going to throw in Eckler for right now. You and Kev can decide on tight end and defense, and we'll see where we're at.
Let's go. It's me, right?
Yeah.
Just go Hawkinson at tight end. Lock in safe points for 5K. I would have said Waller, but couldn't fit him.
Well, that's what I was considering, going Carson and Waller.
You could do that. I like Eckler and Hawkinson as well.
Yeah, I mean I like Eckler better than Carson, I think, in a vacuum, especially on DK. But tight end's just going to be weird, man, because like if Waller goes for 20 plus,
yeah,
who's getting there?
I like Carson too. It's a tough 2v2.
Yeah. Your favorites, Matty. The 2v2s. The 2v2s Sunday morning. I love those. I was 2v2, Matty.
2 years ago I swapped off 2v2 Julio Jones and he scored 56 DraftKings points.
How'd that make you feel?
I don't want to talk about it.
I'm just going to go with the Jets.
All right, fair enough. That leaves 400 on the table there with Tannehill, Chubb, Eckler, Denzel Mims, Jarvis Landry, Corey Davis, Hawkinson, Cooper Kupp, and Jets. Now, with 400 being on the table there, I will say if we get some news that it's not going to be Jacobs out there, I think you can play Waller and the Jets D like on the same lines. I think that's still viable, and I don't know how Waller doesn't smash if Jacobs isn't out there. So that could be something I'll look into with the team, and then drop down Eckler to go to Carson, or maybe there's somebody else that we can go to there. But that's going to be the team as it stands for now. Again, Tannehill, Chubb, Eckler, Mims, Landry, Corey Davis, TJ Hawkinson, Cooper Kupp, and Jets D entering that into the single entry huddle. And that's going to do it for the Week 13 NFL DFS Main Slate. It was fun to make it work with the boys this week. Shout out to Kevin Matty for holding down the fort there to start off the pod and the quarterbacks. Kev getting the pipes working on the intro. You gotta love hearing that. So that's gonna be fun. The Godfather himself. But boys, you guys got any last words for the people as we sign off here for Week 13?
Hopefully the number 13 is a lucky number this week.
I love it, Matty. What about you, Godfather? Put the eggnog down. What we got?
Two things. One, be on the lookout for a giveaway we're going to be doing with just our YouTube subscribers, not podcasts, not anywhere else. Only you have to be subscribed on YouTube. We'll give out some more details here shortly, probably in the next couple of days, maybe by Sunday we'll be putting this out. But it's a really cool giveaway. It's going to be a piece of sports memorabilia that you probably could put in your man cave or somewhere in your house, something like that. But it's going to be pretty cool.
And it may be a piece of sports memorabilia you want after this weekend slate.
That is true. And so
he's a guy we talked about.
Okay. So
we will I'll be putting that out in more detail. But again, it'll be absolutely free. The only thing you'll have to do is just be a subscriber to the channel. That's all you have to do. So anyways, with that, and I think also, by the way, I know Maddie has to figure a few things out, but all three of us should be back here again on Sunday for the game day show.
Oh, snap. Okay. I
might
that information.
I might be attending.
Okay.
TBD, but there's a chance I might be in attendance.
That would be lit. Game day show on Sundays, right here on this channel, the Fantasy Authority, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Central time there. So, yeah, that would be a ton of fun. Would love to have you there, Matty. Well, that's going to do it, guys, for the Degenation pod for this Week 13 NFL DFS Main Slate. Thanks for rocking with us all year. As Kev said, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. It's in your best interest if you want in on that giveaway that we are going to be doing and shooting out the details for. Subscribe to the channel. And then when you subscribe, make sure you guys are liking the videos as well, too, commenting on them. We appreciate all the interaction that we're getting from you guys, man. It's been a fun year. We're ready to rock it out with you guys for the next couple of weeks here as we end out the regular season. But you know what it is with the Degenation. We're all about getting that money. So make sure you guys are having fun. Send us some screenshots. Hit up the Degenation pod and try and get into the Slack chat, as we got guys who are, sending out big hits. A guy just hit on Wednesday on that afternoon slate. If you forgot about the game happening at 2:40, what a weird one. But, as long as they're giving us DFS slates, we're going to be playing. It's the Degenation pod signing off for the Godfather himself, Kevin Steele at FantasyRef13, Matty Dickinson at Matty DFS is where you can find him on Twitter, and myself, Ryan Alexander _W. We will catch you guys next week for the Week 14 NFL DFS main show. Until then, get that money. Peace.